Welcome again to the Gallo Radio Show, SuperTalk Mississippi. Thanks for being with us on this Monday morning, the 20th of January. Today we inaugurate the 47th President of the United States, Donald Trump, for the second time. He was also the 45th President. Today we celebrate the life and the accomplishments of Martin Luther King Jr. We've got a national championship game in college football coming up tonight, and so very much more. But you heard that music bump. That is the SuperTalk Mississippi news bump, which means JT Mitchell is with us in studio, joining us as he does every Monday morning, and as he did with our friend and our brother in broadcasting, Paul Gallo, every Monday morning for so very long. JT, appreciate you being in this morning, as always.
Yeah, Richard, thank you. I thought your delivery during the 6 o'clock hour, the announcement of Paul's passing, was very well done. It is,
thank you,
of course, a busy day across the state and the nation, but it's also a very sad day for the state and this company in particular.
And you had a unique relationship with Paul. He leaned on you on Monday mornings for news updates, the stuff that we missed over the weekend, the stuff that was coming in the current week, and like with everybody he worked with, like with Lance, with Perez before him, his expectation for you was high, and I know it was a neat relationship that the two of you built over the course of the time that you worked together.
Yeah, and he pushed you. That was one of the great things about working with Paul, is that he would tell you when he thought you were doing something wrong, but he would also tell you very quickly when he thought you were doing something right. And I was fortunate enough to, think about it, Richard, this time every single Monday morning for nearly 3 years, Paul and I were together. And that's not to include him calling me at random during the day to try to get the latest scoop on whatever story he was following. I spent an entire summer teaching Paul how to use Facebook.
It's beautiful.
Our relationship was something that I'm very grateful for, and I really do consider Paul a friend. And I got to be subjective here for a moment, because you can't be completely objective when remembering somebody's life. There was a lot that Paul and I did not agree on, and I think a lot of people can say that exact same thing. But one thing that I really do believe Paul and I shared, and he shared with a lot of people, Republican, Democrat, whatever, was the hope for Mississippi to thrive. Whether you agreed with Paul Gallo or not, that is something that you could tell was seeping from his soul, this desire for Mississippi to do well. And he was good at it. He is one of the most talented people I had ever met. I actually discussed this a couple of times, a couple episodes ago on the Ricky Matthews show, was that even though Paul did have a lot of people who disagreed with him politically, most people agreed that he was just a darn good human. He really was, and that's the thing. I think that obituary did a great job of pointing that out, is that he can make you smile, he can make you laugh, he can make you think, and he can make you mad. There's no doubt about it. But at the end of the day, I didn't run.
But more important, because the final time, it's funny you said that, because I actually went to that specific line in the tribute, and to me, the last part of it is the most important part. He didn't just report the news; he brought it to life with humor, heart, and an uncanny ability to weave complex issues into relatable narratives. Paul could make you laugh, make you mad, and make you think, but more importantly, he made you care.
That's absolutely 1,000% correct. I am better at my job. I care more about my job. I care more about the state because of the impact Paul Gallo had on me. Okay? And I think a lot of people can say that. He was just a likable guy. I was, being sad yesterday and went back and watched a lot of segments him and I had together. I watched a lot of segments that he had with other people, especially people that politically opposed him. And I watched this one clip of him and House Minority Leader Robert Johnson. And, they were getting into it about something. Maybe it was Medicaid. And Robert Johnson at the end of it was just like, Paul, just do not forget that I like you. I really do like you. You're my favorite talk show host. And of course, I'm paraphrasing, but that's honestly a prime example of whether you agreed with them or disagreed with them, you liked them. I've not run across many people. And you talk about the humor, Richard. There's nobody that could make me laugh quite like Paul Gallo could. You know, I used to come in here, I like to keep him on his toes. And sometimes I would only see him once a week, right? On Monday mornings. And so I'd come in with a beard, I'd come in clean shaven, or I'd come in with a mustache or something just to keep him on his toes. And he loved to give me hell and tell me divorce papers were coming my way if I kept that beard. One time, I think Lance tipped him off that I had a mustache.
The mustache was the best, yeah.
And it comes on SuperTalk TV because at this point, Paul was recording from his home studio. And Paul had built this fake mustache that he was wearing and running around acting like he was me. He can make you laugh. He really could. And I know this is really the last thing I'll say is I do want to publicly give my condolences to his family because Paul was a light. I'm better at my job because of him, and he was a light to the world. You know, 90% of our conversations were either being goofballs together or talking about current events. But the 10% that will always stay with me, Richard, was him telling me that he believed in me. He believed in the product that newsroom down the hall is and is thriving every day to be. And he did not hesitate to tell me that he thought I was doing a good job.
You know, JT, one of the things that is interesting to me, Paul was a very, very public figure, right? I mean, since 1990, 6 a.m., 5 days a week, 3 hours a day. That's a lot of time being in the public and talking. And it wouldn't be fair to call Paul a recluse outside of the radio, but he was a private person, and he valued the time that he had with his family, with his closest friends, and outside of the time that he was on the radio, Paul wasn't out there just a whole lot. It was we had an all-day remote several years ago in West Point at Old Waverly, and the George Bryan. The late George Bryan hosted a dinner for us inside the clubhouse there at Old Waverly the night before. And we'd come in early, and Paul and I sat together at dinner that night, and we talked. And I thought about it after the fact. It's like, okay, I've been on the radio with Paul a bunch through the years, but I think it's the first time we had ever sat together and shared a meal and just kind of talked about other stuff. And Paul was happy to enjoy the meal. But shortly thereafter, he was ready to retire to his quarters for the evening and get whatever he had left to get done for the show the next morning, and go check on the Cardinals and what's the score, what's going on with the Cardinals, and kind of move on from there. He was certainly a talented individual that cared so very deeply about Mississippi.
And you're talking about a dinner time. That was past Paul's bedtime by that
That's
point.
Right. It was like 6:30. I mean, he probably should have been asleep by for half an hour at that point.
So Paul and I, we shared a love of American Idol, of all things.
All things.
We both really, really loved American Idol. And by the time those episodes would end, Paul was, 2 hours into slumber. And so he'd be texting me or calling me or emailing me at 4 a.m. asking me how the Mississippians did on American Idol. And I'd give him such a hard time. I'd be like, Paul, you either stay up or look it up. But he was just one of one. I mean, you talk about true Mississippi characters. He falls into that category and beyond.
I could never begin to share all the text messages that you have sent in this morning. This one kind of struck me, though. Somebody says, I've listened for years on the way to work, but once I retired, I started texting the show. And after a while, he started replying to my text. That's why I felt like I knew him. And sometimes he would even reference your text on the air. Now that's why we all think that we know him. Paul had the ability to make you feel like you were part of the family. You certainly were a part of his radio program family.
To him, you were family. Every listener out there of Paul Gallo, when he said, my SuperTalk family, he meant it.
He was talking about you.
If there were any words truer on any of his programs, It was every single day when he said good morning and when he said ciao to his SuperTalk family.
Yeah. News update. We have tried to kind of work in some news in and out of some remembrances this morning for Paul, and we're going to continue to honor the memory of Paul. We've got some things that we're going to do in the coming days that will hopefully be a good way to honor him and to you as well. We're going to take a quick time out. We'll wrap things up on this Monday morning edition of the Gallo Radio Show on SuperTalk Mississippi, and we will hit a couple of news headlines with JT Mitchell. One of which is we are under a state of emergency in the state of Mississippi because of the cold. What is it? Enzo? Is that the name of this storm? This, it's got a name. We name everything now. It's not just hurricanes that have names anymore. Winter storms have names as well. And it's going to be really, really cold in the Magnolia State for the next few days. We'll hit a couple of news headlines and then wrap things up with you coming up next on the Gallo Radio Show on SuperTalk Mississippi. I know it was a Friday thing, but it feels like this is a day that Paul Gallo would have said, by the grace of God and by the grace of God alone, we have made it to Inauguration Day.
I think you're right. I was actually thinking about that last night. It's no secret that Paul was an avid Trump supporter. He did not. He would say when he disagreed with him, but I was thinking about the timing last night, about how today is Inauguration Day, and this would have been his show, right? Mm-hmm. But yep, super sad, really is. So.
On a light note, Dave in Ripley says, I sent Paul a text one time, and it was basically just some bathroom humor about me, and later he proceeded to read it on the air after he had shared my name and hometown. My town is pretty small, so I said, Paul, I didn't know you were going to broadcast that to the entire state of Mississippi, and he said, well, you didn't say not to.
You got to be a disclaimer. He'll do it. You're lucky you probably didn't include your last name. He would have read that too.
Social security number, firstborn, PIN number, all the above. JT, let's hit a couple of news headlines as we wrap things up on this Monday morning. There is a lot going on. Legislative session will get back rolling tomorrow after the federal holiday and inauguration today. But I think the biggest thing on a lot of people's mind is this cold front, this Arctic weather that is here and is going to be for the next few days in the state of Mississippi.
That's right, and you were correct. It is Enzo, and Enzo's kind of an enigma.
You looked at me funny when I said that.
I was letting you get to your break. I knew that.
Sure.
But Enzo is kind of an enigma because if you look at the weather right now, the coast is expected to get more snow than Jackson.
Yep.
And then up there by you in Oxford.
We're not going to get any.
I don't think you get any. Like. So right now, there is a winter storm warning for pretty much the entirety of southern Mississippi. They're already preemptively putting it into effect, but it's going to be from 6 a.m. tomorrow until 6 a.m. Wednesday. They expect up to 4 inches on the coast and in the Pine Belt, around 2 inches in the Jackson Metro. And then Richard will be up there playing golf because it'll probably be sunny and no snow up there.
It may be sunny and no snow, but
it's going to be cold.
I snuck out just for a few minutes on Friday afternoon. I didn't get a full round in. I played 6 holes on Friday afternoon, and it was in the 50s, but that wind was starting to pick up, and that front was starting to make its way toward us, and I was like, this is enough for today. We're gonna shut it down early. So no golf this week, or at least that's not the plan for me. I will say, those of you in coastal Mississippi, if you do get the snow that is predicted, we demand pictures. We want to see it on the C Spire text line. You know the number, 601-879-4395. Hey, what's coming up in the legislature this week?
So today is the deadline to officially, there's so many deadlines, but today is the deadline to officially file those bills. And I'm expecting a flood from the Senate. I mean, they only have 146 bills filed so far. That's in comparison to 1,072 in the House.
Okay.
So today is that. However, you will see some bills come back in and be backdated. As our friends at State Watch say, it's nothing nefarious. It's just the government. It's the legislative process. But I'm expecting a flood of bills, and I also am quite intrigued, I know you are too, to see what the Senate decides to do on their side of the Capitol regarding tax cuts. Are they going to take the House's bill and just scramble it around and try to find something they can agree upon, or are they going to put out their own bill? We'll see.
We will get into that much more tomorrow. Had some conversations with people over the weekend. There is legislation on the way from the Senate side. Whether or not it is a comprehensive bill like the House has put forward, I think remains to be seen. And to your point about expecting more bills coming from the Senate, I know that there were multiple bills that were being worked on and drafted Friday and through the weekend. I think everybody knew that deadline was looming, and there was a lot to get done in a short amount of time. We might sometimes be a little jaded when we think about the legislature, and it's like, oh, they show up, and this is not willy-nilly the way they go about this process. There is a great deal of care that's being taken in the crafting of some of these bills to make sure that they are written exactly the right way.
Yep. And, last week the Build Up Mississippi Act was passed, but that was step 3 out of around 10 steps if they're actually going to get it through and to the governor's desk. It is a lengthy process, but of course we cover it. We cover it hard, supertalk.fm, as well as on 48 stations across the state. And last thing, Richard, I just want to tell you, I know Paul Gallo would be extremely proud of you taking over in terms of filling in for his show. He would be proud of you.
It's very kind of you to say that, JT. Thank you. Thank you for being with us this morning. Please keep the Gallo family in your thoughts, in your prayers, and continue to think of them as they go through this difficult mourning period. For our entire crew at SuperTalk Mississippi, I'm Richard Cross. We'll be back with you tomorrow morning. Have a great Monday.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap. Have a great day.